hello again. Good to see you guys. Hey, it's time for another Photoshop lesson here. And this time we're going to actually do some black and white. It'll be fun, I promise. Okay, so let's pick an image. This one is, by the way, this demonstration is for your bird's eye worm's eye. Okay, so you got a bird's eye worm's eye assignment. Hopefully you went out and shot that. If you haven't done it yet, let's get to it, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and open an image. In fact, even before I do that, let's get to our instructions. Remember I told you I typed up some instructions for each one of these projects. And here's the one that accompanies that. So it's digital assignment number 2, procedures. All right, this is for bird's eye, worm's eye. So it says to download your pics, view them, and open in Photoshop by right-clicking. And then you can open it with Photoshop. All right, so remember you can right-click it and say open with. And so you can do that. I'd already opened this, so here it is right there. It's a nice worm's eye point of view that was shot up in Yosemite, beautiful Yosemite Valley. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And it says, by the way, your next thing, it says to do a save as your photo by going to File, Save As. The file should be your last name underscore BEWE, stands for bird's eye worm's eye 1, and you're going to save it as a Photoshop document. And that changes the format to a Photoshop document. That is literally, I didn't say it in the last demo, and afterwards I said, God, I should have said that. It's literally like changing its DNA, right? It changes its file format. So that's a really important thing to do. And remember what I said, you start with the JPEG, you end with the JPEG, but in the interim, in the middle part while we're working, you're going to be using Photoshop. Okay, so let's go ahead and open that image again, and you'll see it has a different name on it, so I'm going to go File, Save As. That's going to let me change its name. I'm going to put, again, J Stafford. I'm going to go underscore, and I'm going to say BEWE 1, because I'm going to do 2 of these. And I'm going to say Photoshop. It's going to save it to Photoshop, and I'm going to put it in my picture folder. Now I didn't download all these here the way I did the last one, but let me go ahead and pull that down here, and I'm going to right click and I will make a new folder. I'll actually just call this one BEWE for bird's eye worm's eye, and I'll put it in the bird's eye worm's eye folder. Organization is everything. Stay organized, kids. Stay organized, okay? And I'm going to say save. So there it is. All right, it's a nice bird's eye worm's eye here. So next, let's learn something new in Photoshop. The next thing says to adjust the brightness, contrast, and exposure by going to the Adjustments tab under Windows Adjustments. Select the Levels icon. This creates a new layer. Adjust your image with the sliders. This is a new adjustment in Photoshop. It's going to do the same thing, and it's going to show you that you have a variety of ways of working. Professional photographers and videographers and web designers, they all get what's known as a workflow, and they all have their favorite ways of doing things, but it's always good to learn new things too. So we're going to be changing the brightness and contrast. If you remember, we did that last time, but we did it in a different way, and then we also adjusted the exposure in a different way. We're going to do that all in one step. So I am going to go here, and it says to go to Window and Adjustments. Mine are open already. You go to Window and Adjustments. Click. But if you don't see it, there it is right there for me. All right. You said, hey, where did my other stuff go? Layers. Remember layers? That's where all of the adjustments that you're going to change on your image are located. So adjustments are right here. Or if you remember, here's another way to do it. You can click this little black and white ball right here, and you can say levels. Any one of those will work. You get this thing here. It's called a histogram. What's a histogram? A histogram it's like the fingerprint of this picture. It's like a fingerprint on this picture. And what it says is, hey, there's some dark areas here, there's some middle values here, and then there's some bright stuff here. So you see there's some little bit of dark areas, see like in the silhouettes of the tree limbs. But then you also see some light areas in the clouds, and you see some light areas in the dogwood flowers. It's really pretty if you go to Yosemite whenever the dogwoods are blooming. It's really awesome. So you see the whites of this, and so that's what it says. Dark areas, not tons of middle areas, but that's what that green is, and then certainly lots of white there. So the way you would make this adjustment is you take this is your black point, your medium values, and your white values, and you take them and you squeeze them together to adjust your contrast. Now a little goes a long ways, but I just take it and I kind of squeeze it together just a little bit. I don't have to move them a lot. And then this adjusts my exposure right here. You can see how it's getting lighter and darker. It was pretty close to where it was, but I'm going to take it and put it right about there. So now I can go back and look at my layer palette, and you see that it actually created a layer for me. So I was able to make that adjustment there. Okay, next. Some images you'll need a lot more. Like I didn't need a lot in this one, but sometimes you'll need a lot more. So don't be afraid to really kick that contrast up even more, and to also change that middle slider right in the middle, because it will then change your exposure for you. So that's a good one to learn, because it's kind of like one-stop shopping. Okay, let's look at our next one. Next, turn your image black and white by going to the Adjustments tab again and selecting black and white. Play with these settings to get your desired result. You'll see some cool things with this here. All right, so again, I'm going to click on that little ball right there, or you can also just go right here. Let's do it a different way this time. I will click on this tab. You'll notice when I roll my mouse over this, you can probably see that right there, the little words change. And this thing that has a black and white box, it says black and white right there. So if you click it, boop, I just made the image black and white with one click. And you go, hey, wait a minute, what's all this stuff right here? All this stuff right here allows you to change still your RGB channels on your image. Now, you probably have heard before about RGB. It stands for red, green, and blue. And so all the colors that you see on your screen are actually comprised of just red, green, and blue values. So even though right now you don't see any color information, those channels are still there. And so you can actually take this and you can slide these. Now, there weren't a lot of reds there, but guess what? Hey, there was a whole blue sky there. Watch what happens when I slide this blue slider. Whoa, look at that. So I can really change how intense I want that sky to look. Well, don't overdo it. It's one of the things in photography, unless we're really going to do some like surrealism assignment, which we'll get to later, where we want things to look all crazy. Most of the time, a little goes a long way. So I'm going to actually take this and I'm going to put it right about, I like that right there. Guess what? I can probably do the same thing with greens, because remember there was a bunch of green right in there on all those plants. So you can see how, wow, look, I could actually bring out some detail on those plants just by sliding this around. So this is a fun thing to play with. You'll notice that, watch, if I slide this red, you don't see too much, do you? Because there wasn't a lot of red in there. You got a little bit from that sun shining through, but you can see how you can bring out a lot of different areas that you maybe even didn't even realize were there. And so that's a really fun one to play with. One other thing you can do is there's a little box right here at the top. And I kind of like the way this image looks now, but if I click it, it actually puts a color on top of all those things I just did. And you can actually change this. I could actually click right here. I like it to look kind of like warm tone. This kind of looks like a sepia tone, looks like those pictures you see at the fair. But if you take it and you go really close to the black right here, you're putting in just a little bit of a tint on top of it right there. It's actually not too bad. You can also change the color of it. Sometimes it looks good to have, this is a warm toned image, because see, it looks kind of almost like coffee or tea stained look. You could also, on some images, they look really cool if you turn them bluish. And that's actually not too bad either. Kind of gives it a cool tone look. But I think I like the warmer tone. And I'm going to make it a little redder and do about like that right there. Not a lot, just a little bit of that. But you see, it's a really nice black and white image now with a slight tonality to it. Okay, so I'm happy with that. If you look at the before and after, if I click the eyeball, that just turns your visibility on and off. You can see that, I think that's a good black and white. I like it a lot. Okay, next, we are going to sharpen. You remember we did that last time too. This time we're going to do it differently. Okay. So now sharpen your image. There's tons of ways of doing this. Here's a good one. It's called stamp visible. So it's called high pass. So it says do stamp visible your layers. So you do this Shift Control Alt E. It says Command in case you're a Mac person. Now go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. By the way, when I list this here, it shows you that you're doing a menu change on it. So you go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. Then you're going to turn the effect until it looks good, probably about 10 on the radius. Next, you'll switch your blending mode to overlay. You'll need to probably turn the layer down with the opacity slider in your layer palette. So again, we're going to sharpen it. We're going to do a stamp visible, Control Shift Alt and E. Let's do that first. Okay, so I'm going to do a Control Shift Alt N E, and that's kind of like a two-handed operation. Control Shift Alt E. And then it says to go to Filter. Now I'm up here on my menu items. Filter, Other, and High Pass. So then you look at it and you go, whoa, that looks kind of weird, but not really what I had in mind. But don't worry about it. We're not done yet. So I said put it at about 10 is pretty good. So you click on 10 and you click OK. And then it says, let's keep reading. So I did the turn the effect until it looks good, probably about 10 on the radius. Next, you'll switch your blending mode to overlay, and then you'll probably need to turn the layer down with the opacity slider in the layer palette. So now there's things called blending modes right here. Now, what are blending modes? Blending modes are ways that you make the top layer interact with the layer underneath it. Okay, so how are these two going to interact? Well, there's lots of different ways to blend. It's kind of fun to click on some of them. Right now, just so the demo doesn't go too long, I won't click on all of them, but as you're playing with it, play with different ones. But in this case, overlay looks good. So I click on overlay. Now, it's probably a little too intense. Let me zoom into this. That's Control plus plus plus. And you can see, here's the, I'm going to click on the eyeball for this. And you can actually, let me click on that eyeball right there. You can see the difference. And it kind of makes it look a little too intense whenever I'm zoomed in like that. So I don't like that too much, so I just take my opacity slider down, and I'm going to put it to maybe about, like about 35% is probably pretty good right there. Okay? All right, awesome. And now we're going to add a vignette. Getting close to being done on this one. Add a vignette by creating a new layer. So you go Layer, New Layer. In the new layer, select an elliptical area with the elliptical marquee tool. Then select everything else by going to Select Inverse. Refine the edge of your selection by going to Select Refine Edge. Then select 250 pixels. Click OK. You're going to right fill black, click OK, and then right fill deselect. So let's go ahead and make a new layer. You can do it by doing, as it says, Layer, New Layer. So I could do that. Or here's another way of doing it. Just click that little tiny square icon right next to the trash can. Don't click the trash can right now. Click that little tiny square icon and look, I just made a new layer that fast. Pretty cool. So now I take the elliptical marquee tool, which is this guy right here, and then I'm going to click and I am going to drag. Should look about like that. I have my crawling ants now. I'm going to, all the rest of these are right clicks, so I go Select Inverse. I want to feather this. I right click and I can go feather, or you can also go select and mask. That's another way to do it, but the instructions say feather, so we can stick with that. And it says to do 250 or greater. That's just going to soften the transition. I am going to right click again and say fill, and I'm going to say use black at 100%. Okay. And I can get rid of those crawling ants now, so I say deselect, and then again I'm going to take this and turn it down maybe about 30%. And it doesn't say this in the instructions, but you can actually do the same thing and put this one to overlay too. And it kind of makes it blend in even more. See what it does right there? It actually makes the images darker rather than laying a gray on top of it, which I kind of like this better. So again, you're just trying to focus the viewer's attention to the center of the picture, and you just darken down those edges. It's kind of a psychological thing. You just say, tell people's brains, look mostly here. Here being in that central area right there. Okay, here we go. Then turn the opacity of the vignette down by using the opacity slider. I did that. Now we're going to save, and then we're going to do a save as. So I do a save, which is a, hey, learn the shortcut, Control S, and it just saves it. And then we do a save as, which is Control, or save as right there, which is Control Shift S, but there's save as right there. And you remember what I said, keep the name the same, but switch it out to a JPEG. And there's a JPEG right there. It's going to go in my bird's eye worm's eye folder. Click save, click OK. So now when I close this down here and I open that bird's eye worm's eye folder, it's in my picture folder, and I have something that says BEWE. Look at that, I have a JPEG right there, and you'll take that and drag that into the flash drive, and that's it. So there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Watch it again if you need to. But but hopefully you enjoyed that one. Okay?